Welcome to AC 24/7 Top Story Countdown. We'll guide you through the biggest news of the day. Our focus, advocating our rights, advocating equality, advocating health, and advocating Earth. Here's our pick for number 4.
Focusing on the characters and being able to protect the heart of the movie in the midst of the chaos of all the explosions and the speed that we have to shoot.
Director Angel Manuel Soto says filming in Puerto Rico is important to more than the movie itself.
I remember going in Puerto Rico and working with the crew in Puerto Rico that has worked with me since I started my career. They took it as if it was theirs because they know how much this means to our community and our collective community to finally see ourselves be the heroes of our stories.
All right, let's see if it works.
I wouldn't test it.
That's all I wanted in a way, to be able to do right by Jaime Reyes, by Blue Beetle, by the fans, and by our community. And we did do this with a lot of love.
TheAdvocateChannel.com looks at the world through the lens of equality and inclusion. Subscribe, like, and share now. AC 24/7's Top Story Countdown continues with our producer's pick for number 3.
What we're essentially seeing play out right now is this authoritarian bloc and this democracy bloc. The United States, Japan, South Korea at Camp David, really tackling some of the toughest issues that they're facing in the region right now, which is, of course, the rise of China, the perceived aggression by some of China. Some might call it an assertive China, but certainly a China that's posing new challenges on the economic front, on the military front, when you're talking about concerns for the self-ruling democracy of Taiwan. And then, of course, you have North Korea, which has been in the headlines as of late for a barrage of ballistic missile tests, and, of course, concerned that they could even take that further in terms of military cooperation with the Russians, because remember, it was Russia's defense minister in North Korea just last month meeting with Kim Jong-un, talking about deepening their military cooperation. Kim Jong-un gave a tour of his new ICBMs. He showed off drones that a lot of analysts have said closely resemble United States military drones. And then, of course, China, with all of its economic support for North Korea, allowing trade to move back and forth across the border, sending their own high-level delegation to Pyongyang last month to celebrate North Korea's Armistice Day. This is this authoritarian bloc, North Korea, Russia, China, and their increased cooperation, very troubling to the United States, and of course, vice versa as well. China's foreign ministry putting out a statement talking about that, saying, and I quote here, attempts to cobble together various exclusionary groupings and bring bloc confrontation and military blocs into the Asia-Pacific are not going to get support and will only be met with vigilance and opposition from regional countries. That's from the foreign ministry spokesperson in Beijing. There has been a flurry of military activity that we're monitoring when you're talking about Russia and China warships conducting joint patrols in the East China Sea. You had North Korea scrambling fighter jets. North Korea in particular is concerned about upcoming military drills between the United States and South Korea. The North has always said that they consider those a dress rehearsal for an invasion. And you even had Japan scrambling fighter jets after seeing Russian information gathering planes. So a lot of military activity, a very tense and troubling time in that part of the world.
Like the Advocate Channel on Facebook for the best way to get updated stories that advocate for equality, justice, our rights, and more. AC 24/7 continues with today's number 2 pick.
It seems like the last 48 hours of open discussion as to when exactly Ukraine would get F-16s may be yielding some increase in public commitments by NATO allies here. Remember, we heard in the last few days how Ukraine's Air Force spokesperson said they would not be receiving F-16s until next year. Now, in a trip to Denmark and the Netherlands, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has been receiving fairly watertight pledges from leaders there as to what he will get. Denmark have said they will supply 19 F-16s. That's kind of the clearest indication we've had yet from a NATO member that they will deliver these high-tech US-supplied jets to Ukraine. Likely 6 this year, potentially, or the back end of this year, and then more in the years to come. Not everything they need right now, but the ambition of this project is extraordinary. And the Netherlands, also, as Zelensky visited, they have said that they have 42 F-16s, but they haven't said how many of those they will hand over to Ukraine. Ukraine obviously would like to have all of them. But this is a marked change from 48 hours ago, where it frankly wasn't clear at all when F-16s would arrive in Ukraine. A reminder why they need them. They're Troops on the front lines in the southern counter-offensive are suffering from Russian air superiority, from half-metric-ton bombs that Russians drop at will on their advancing troops, on their troops' positions, and that is really slowing down the capacity of Ukraine to achieve gains in its counter-offensive. Indeed, what F-16s might be able to do is to interdict those Russian jets, but more widely for Ukrainians here in Zaporizhia, we've heard 4 or 5 air sirens so far today. The ability to perhaps challenge Russian superiority in the air, to deliver missiles and hit civilian targets on a nightly basis that we're currently seeing. So no doubt at all in Ukraine's mind that they urgently need F-16s right now, but they aren't going to get it. They're going to have to wait probably until January, maybe the back end of this year, to see the first trickle in. That is because the complex mechanism requires Ukrainian pilots to be trained by European allies with US sign-off, and then the jets, which we've heard from Denmark and the Netherlands now are coming their way, would also require US approval to be passed on. That is because they are good stuff. They are high technology. They would be useful for Ukraine indeed, but they will require a lot of maintenance and a lot of support to keep going. But still, like we saw with the supply of Leopard armoured tanks in the past months, when NATO puts its mind to answering a very direct and public and at times angry Ukrainian demand, they are able to do that. And so we are perhaps seeing this possibly formulating with the F-16s, but their arrival will be way later than Ukrainian troops on the front line, dying daily, would like to see.
Follow the Advocate channel on Twitter and Instagram to stay updated on stories that matter every day. We have now arrived at our #1 story of the day. Take a look.
Devastating images coming out of Mexico in the northwest state of Baja California, which has been pummeled for several hours by rain as Tropical Storm Hilary made its way up along the coastline, eventually making landfall Sunday morning around 11 o'clock local time in the small community of San Quintin. Residents there feeling the full force of this storm. That's 65-mile-an-hour winds, extreme storm surge, and then, of course, damage to the roadways. Authorities telling folks, do not leave your house, stay home. There was an incident in Santa Rosalia earlier this weekend where a man was caught in his car and swept away and killed. These were roads that had naturally become rivers as 4 inches of rain pounded the area in just a few hours' time. That's, of course, on top of immense amounts of rain coming down from the mountains in the central part of the state, just creating these terrible, terrible conditions. Across the entire state, though, there has been damage as Hilary made its way northward towards California. Ensenada, Mexico's wine region, was right in the center of the storm. And then, of course, Tijuana, an important border city that's been a hub for migrants as they make their way towards the U.S. Tijuana is a city with very poor infrastructure in some parts. It's a hilly city. Some of these homes are built into the sides of the hills, and mudslides, I should say, are common there. So authorities on high alert, looking for anyone in need of rescue as the storm moved through Tijuana into California with just this immense amounts of rain. Of course, this area, it's unusual for storms to hit like this, but it's not quite as rare as it is in California. That's because as storms form in the Pacific, they'll make their way up and then usually turn eastwards when they hit Baja California, where the waters are much cooler than the waters are to the south. This storm, of course, ignoring history, moving straight up through Baja California and into California, where it's just wreaked havoc.
Thanks for watching the Advocate Channel's top stories. We're on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Follow, like, and share. Or check out advocatechannel.com for even more stories that advocate for you.